So Tyson Fury just went the whole 10 rounds with Francis Ngannou. I should say the opposite. Francis Ngannou went the distance with Tyson Fury. 10 rounds in a pretty competitive boxing match. A lot of people didn't see this coming at all. And I think, from the beginning, I had made a video a couple of months ago. There's a lot of people that owes Francis Ngannou an apology for all of the shit they talked. A lot of people were questioning, like, why is he leaving the UFC? Is it because he's not making enough money? It wasn't really about leaving the UFC or, making a bigger name for himself or anything like that. It was really just about betting on himself and then having the freedom to do what he wanted to do, which the UFC was pretty limited or limiting him to do what he wanted to do, right? He wanted to chase that boxing fight. And whether it was against Tyson Fury or it was against Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua or even like Andy Ruiz or I don't know who else was going to be in there, he was going to find a boxer at some point that was willing to fight him and a boxing promoters that were willing to pay him to do so just because he has a big name. Right now, there's a lot of credit that has to be given to the UFC. Whenever I watch these big, crossover fights, it's always a big UFC star against a boxer, right? And there's always a lot of controversy as to, why the MMA fighter left the UFC and stuff like that. But in the end, why Francis Ngannou is Francis Ngannou today is because of the UFC. So we do have to tip our hat off to the UFC for creating who Francis Ngannou is, promoting him the right way, and creating the star that he has become. So at the end of the day, UFC is always going to be the biggest MMA league, and we're seeing it nowadays where, it started with Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor, and now there's multiple of other names now in the UFC specifically that have big enough names that could fight pro boxers, and pro boxers would be willing to do so because of their name value. You know what I mean? So shout out to the UFC for doing so, but an even bigger shout out to Francis Ngannou for betting on himself and taking that risk. And now it's like, I don't know, it feels sweet for him. It feels really, really sweet for him. A lot of people didn't like the move and stuff like that. And I think just the fact that he had gotten the fight against Fury was a win in itself. He probably could have gotten knocked out in 30 seconds. People were saying, oh, he would have gotten washed up or anything like that. But to be fair, even if he had lost, he still would have won on paper. The big money fight, the big name, leaving the UFC as a champion and proving everybody wrong. That to me is a win in itself. And what he did last night was it was a close and competitive fight. And I think, when you look at it on paper, you can see Tyson Fury is still the better boxer. He had more outputs in the most rounds, but it was just so unbelievably impressive to see Ngannou actually being able to compete, because from what we saw from him in the UFC, it wasn't a technical striker or a technical boxer at all. You saw that fight against Jairzinho Rosenstruck where he was literally just bulldozing his way to a knockout in 15 seconds. But that's the type of power he possesses. We didn't see counter punches, head movements in the UFC, rolling the shoulders and rolling his head with the punches like they do in boxing. We didn't see any of it, right? So for him to come out against Tyson Fury and have all of these skills to his game, that was just impressive in itself. But I don't want to be that guy as well that kind of lets the impressive or lets the underdog story kind of outweighs the result of the fight. I don't want to do that, because we've talked about Islam Makhachev versus Volkanovski in that first fight. Alexander Volkanovski was the underdog, and because he had kind of made it a fight with Islam, everybody thought he won, which I disagreed with completely. He made it a fight didn't mean that he won. So I also want to keep that same mentality and energy going into, talking about this fight, because it's not because Ngannou was impressive and he did more he did more than we expected that it means that he won. Now, that doesn't mean I think he didn't win. On paper, I haven't rewatched it. I haven't rewatched each and every single round, and I'm also not the best boxing judges. I haven't watched boxing in a long, long time, and I don't really know how it works. Boxing judges are just bad, horrible. So I don't even want to say anything like confirming because I really don't know. But what I can say is from watching it live, I thought Ngannou won. But I did think he could have done more. Like he said it in an interview after the
And
fight. He
even before
said,
getting here, I know, like if this fight get to decision, I'm not winning. Not because I didn't do good, because I'm a new guy in the house.
and in my head, I'm like, all right, so if you knew this, why didn't you try just a bit harder, especially in those last 2 rounds? Like, I thought the first seven rounds were competitive, and Ngannou was probably like had the bigger moments, and that's why I was favoring him to win those first seven, maybe not seven, all the 7 rounds, but he was in there competitive through the first seven, through the first eight, I should say, and then the last 2 rounds, it feels like he maybe knew he was winning the fight and just didn't want to like lose it all because he was like maybe a bit, I don't know, I don't want to say afraid, but like he didn't want to take that risk, right? But I thought the ninth and 10th round he should have pushed a bit more, try to throw more. But as long as the fight was going, it's just inevitable that like the more skilled and experienced boxer is going to take over, especially when you're tired. When you get tired, your reflexes and your instinct play a big role, right? So when you've been boxing for tens and tens of years, even when you're tired, you still have instinct. But when you've been boxing for not that long, you get tired. The instinct doesn't translate the same way. So I understand that maybe, but I do believe he could have tried a bit harder in the ninth and 10th round to actually secure the victory. Like if he would have ended the 10th round, like let's just talk about the 10th round, the last one. If he would have ended the 10th round throwing heat and like trying his heart out to get even if it didn't look pretty, to me would have stamped his victory. And judges would have seen that like, all right, he had the knockdown, he was competitive throughout the whole entire fight, and he ended strong. He deserves the victory. And in my mind, if he had done that, he could have gotten the victory. And it was pissing me off. So I was like, listen, you're winning this. You can literally win this. Just go in the 10th round. And he didn't go. And it pissed me off because I was like, he could have secured that victory that way. But obviously, in the end, we're all still proud of him. The whole MMA community is very, very proud of him because we've been embarrassed by Jake Paul throughout all the MMA fighters. We've seen legends fall in boxing fights from the beginning, right? So for this to happen, it's exceptional, and it makes it great to see because finally we can we can say that as MMA fighters, the MMA fighters have skills, all right? They're not just brawlers, and I guess they're still most of the times this is a heavyweight fight, I'm not gonna lie. So the higher you go in weight classes, the lesser skills is needed. So that's why whenever you see like a boxer like Floyd Mayweather, like the skill level is at a completely different level than someone like Tyson Fury. Even as good as Tyson Fury is, he's not even close to the level of a boxer that Floyd Mayweather was. Comparatively, obviously. Now, obviously, the power comes into its size and height, and that plays a factor into a fight, whether you like it or not. People would be like, oh, height doesn't matter, weight doesn't matter. It obviously does. So that definitely plays a role. But if you look at it like pound for pound, the higher weight guy is usually less skilled, less talented. So that's why I think he had most amount of chances. You look at heavyweight fighters. If you take a heavyweight MMA fighter into against a heavyweight boxer, he has the most chance than like a lightweight against a lightweight, or even I think lightweight in boxing is not even like 155. You see in MMA it's 155, but lightweight in boxing is 135. So yeah, I think Floyd fought, what was it? It was welterweight. I think he fought. Pretty much his career was 147. Welterweight or light welterweight or something like that, junior welterweight. They have so many different weight classes in boxing. Like, to be honest, I'm kind of lost for words. I can't keep track, but in the end, we're all very proud of Francis Ngannou. Thank you for making MMA look good for once. Finally, thank you. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. I'll see you guys in the next video, man. Peace out.